And I am going to tell you that I want us to focus on right versus wrong. The reason that we are struggling right now in this country as it relates to people not trusting agencies, honestly, a lot of it is because of elected leaders. Let me tell you, one of the things that the chairman and I actually agree upon, we don't agree on a lot, is that we both know that there has been a sharp incline as it relates to threats upon our lives. Regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, we both know and agree that as sitting members of Congress, we both are enduring more death threats than anybody should in this country. And I believe that it is because of the divisive rhetoric and it is because of the selective enforcement of things.
Anyone who regularly watches this program knows that I have a special bit of hate in my heart for Carolyn Levitt. And I think it is well placed she is not just bad at her job. She does not just lie poorly, but she does it with such anger and vitriol for the reporters asking truthful questions. And it's not just reporters in the White House press pool. Whenever Carolyn Levitt is confronted, she always gives an angry and lie-filled response. And she did to a student journalist who asked her a question about other fellow students being snatched up by this administration. Something happening on my campus as well. And her response was exactly what you would expect when confronted over Donald Trump's illegal plan. We're going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into the question that was asked of Carolyn Levitt, of course, we first need the context, and we're going to get that from Senator Chris Murphy right here.
A young man by the name of Mahmoud Khalil, an immigrant and a legal permanent resident of the United States, is being held right now in prison, even though no criminal charges have been filed against him. And I want to tell you why that should matter to every single American. Khalil is a recent graduate of Columbia University. He opposed Israel's military operation in Gaza. He has deep animus toward Israel's policies and the U.S. support for those policies. He helped organize the protests over Gaza at his university last year. You can disagree with his views or his politics, but there is no evidence he has broken any law. But last weekend, Trump officials entered his apartment and took him into custody. They brought him to a detention facility in New Jersey at first, but when his family went to visit him, he wasn't there. For a while, his family and his lawyer had no idea where he was. They eventually found out that he was being held in a detention facility in Louisiana, and that's where he still is today. In dictatorships, they call this practice being disappeared. No charges, no claims of criminal behavior. The White House doesn't claim he did anything criminal. He's in jail because of his political speech. And here's why everybody should care. In America, your political speech is protected, whether or not the president likes what you say. But today, if you're loyal to Donald Trump, your speech is going to be protected, even if it's hate speech. You can be Marco Ellis, an employee of Doge, who said he, quote, was racist before it was cool, and, quote, normalize Indian hate. And the vice president of the United States will tweet in your defense. But if you are disloyal to Trump, or you're organizing against Trump's political agenda, your speech could be criminalized. You could find yourself in jail. Now, Trump chose to begin by disappearing a Palestinian immigrant, hoping that his place of birth and his immigrant status would just cause people to look the other way. But we cannot. Because once it becomes normal for the regime to disappear people simply for protest against the regime's policies, once a citizen or a resident of America can be locked away with no charges against them simply because they protested, there is no going back for America. Even if you're a hardened Trump supporter, this practice should cross the line for you. Even if you disagree with Khalil's views, this practice should cross the line for you. This has nothing to do with supporting Trump. This is about supporting an American value, maybe the most important American value, protecting free speech, even if it's speech you disagree with. If our new reality is that a president can disappear an opposition protester with no charges filed against them, we are not America any longer. Today it's Mahmoud Khalil. Tomorrow.
Now, since that important explainer was posted by Senator Murphy, we have gotten several updates in the case of Mahmoud Khalil, including one that a judge ruled that he could be deported. A Trump judge ruled that he could be deported without cause, without evidence, which the State Department has already made clear in a leaked report. They didn't have any evidence. They didn't have any reason to abduct, detain, to disappear this student. They just did so because, as we know is the policy of the Trump administration, they are after intimidation above all else. That's what they're trying to do to students. That's what they're trying to do to judges. That's what they're trying to do to protesters. And Caroline Levitt was asked about that by a student, and her response is exactly what you would expect.
Much, Caroline, for taking the question. I appreciate it. My name is Luke. I'm from Syracuse University. I wanted to ask about an issue that's affecting college students at my campus and on others. We had just this past week 3 students on SU campus have their visas revoked. Foreign students have their visas revoked. What do you say to students on college campuses who are maybe afraid that they or their friends could get swept up in what's happening here and provide some clarity on that issue?
Well, first of all, if they are an American citizen studying at a university, they should not be afraid. And if they are on a foreign visa and they are studying and they are obeying our nation's laws and they are focusing on their degree and they are not engaging in illegal behavior, then they shouldn't worry as well. The revocation of visas is a right that the Secretary of State holds under the Immigration and Nationality Act. And if a visa student, a foreign national who came here with the privilege to study at one of our universities, is acting in an adversarial way to our foreign policy interests, the Secretary of State reserves the right to revoke that privilege for them to come and study at our nation's universities and colleges. And so long as they're not engaging in illegal behavior, they should have nothing to worry
Is
about.
protesting illegal behavior?
No, but illegal harassment of students on college campuses and engaging in criminal behavior absolutely is illegal. And we want to make sure that we're enforcing our nation's laws.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now, the important point made by Levitt there, or really lack of point, is she said, if students are breaking the law, of course, they should have their visas revoked. If they're lying on their visas, of course, they should have their visas revoked. But what the Trump administration has already made clear is that they don't care if you are breaking the law. That was a complete lie. What a shock from Carolyn. Mahmoud Khalil did not break the law. There was no evidence that he did, presented by the Trump administration students across the country who have been detained or abducted by masked ICE agents. We're done. So because they wrote op-eds, because they spoke out peacefully on their campuses. It is not about who broke the law. It is about who they can intimidate. That is what's going on here. That is what students are feeling. That there are ICE agents dressed in street clothes patrolling their campuses that make the environment unsafe. That's not what a college campus should be. Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, all these right-wingers have talked so much about how conservatives are being canceled. They can't go on a campus and talk. That's not true. Charlie Kirk has built his entire career off of going to college campuses, debating students. Do you know who can't be on a college campus? Apparently anyone who opposes Donald Trump, those people are unsafe. And I feel that more and more every day, which is why I'm excited that I'm graduating soon, because I do this show from my dorm. And it seems like, according to the Trump administration, this is breaking the law. They want to detain me for speaking out as a student. Yeah, it seems like that's the case. The thing that Donald Trump warned against that was happening to him, which was never true. The weaponization of the Justice Department is actually happening against anyone who will oppose him. And Jasmine Crockett talked all about that right here.
I first just want to begin with a news alert. Guess what? Joe Biden is not the president anymore. So maybe we can move on. Maybe we can move into the present, because it seems like we are living in the past. And listen, these are not the good old days, you know, like you used to sit around and your grandparents would talk to you about what used to happen. What we need to be talking about is how we are going to legislate, because I think that some of my colleagues have confused what our jobs are. And I get that we're sitting in judiciary. And so it may seem as if we are here to be litigators, but we are here to to be legislators, which means that we are supposed to be writing laws, not trying to have our own trials and determine whether or not something is true or not, or whatever the case is, or who should be sued, who shouldn't be sued. All I know is that a great American hero, a good senator out of New Jersey, said something to the effect yesterday as he was shattering the record for holding the floor, a record that had been held by another racist in this country. As he shattered that, he said something about the fact that this should not be about left versus right. It should be about right versus wrong. And I am going to tell you that I want us to focus on right versus wrong. The reason that we are struggling right now in this country as it relates to people not trusting agencies, honestly, a lot of it is because of elected leaders. Let me tell you, one of the things that the chairman and I actually agree upon, we don't agree on a lot, is that we both know that there has been a sharp incline as it relates to threats upon our lives. Regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, we both know and agree that as sitting members of Congress, we both are enduring more death threats than anybody should in this country. And I believe that it is because of the divisive rhetoric, and it is because of the selective enforcement of things. And so when we have, and I'm gonna be clear, because I had remarks and I'm going a whole other way. To have the sitting attorney general go on, and I'm gonna call it faux news. I know some of y'all love it, but it's fake to me. To have her go on Fox News and to then decide that she wanted to send a threat to me, it was wrong. Because here it is, she is the highest law enforcement agent in this country, and people are watching and they are consuming this information, and they are believing that simply because I decided that I wanted to exercise my right to free speech, which I am not abridged from doing, that she then wanted to then politicize something that should not be politicized. I don't like Elon Musk. I'm gonna say it 50,000 times. I don't like him. I don't like that he going out there and he firing people. I think that he's a crook because somehow the rest of us can't sit around and get whatever federal contracts we want. The rest of us can't sit around and get law enforcement and get them somehow ordained as federal law enforcement to protect him. The rest of us can't get our dealerships protected by the federal government. That is somebody that is operating above the law. For whatever reason, just because he has a lot of money, more money than everybody else. And yes, I am happy to see that on my birthday, which is what I said, there were peaceful protests around this world against him because he is a problem. And so you never should have somebody that is sitting that high and is going to sit up here and threaten a sitting member of Congress when she knew good and well, if she watched the entire thing, that I specifically told protesters to make sure you consult with lawyers, just like I've told protesters over and over and over in the history of me advising people to go out and exercise their constitutional right. The fact that there are other sitting members that have received letters of threat from this new DOJ tells me that they are about retribution and they are not about following the law. The reason that our party, or I won't even say our party, our country is torn apart is because we can't even agree on right versus wrong. This should not be left versus right. The only thing that we're asking is that we have law enforcement that will show up when there is an actual crime. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to investigate this cyber crime, or I need you to investigate this child pornography, or I need you to investigate this robbery, then we want somebody to show up, and we don't want them to look at us and act as if just because I'm black or because I'm woman that I am not worthy of having that case investigated, because we have an administration that is continuously railing against diversity, equity, and inclusion, or we don't need people that show up that feel like diversity should not be valued. That is why we should have somebody that may show up and looks like me. The final thing that I'll say, because you've been gracious, is this. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, let me tell you something. When I walk in, I'm gonna walk in with a level of rapport and understanding that maybe some of my other colleagues will not. Charlie offered me my job, and I worked my butt off, and I worked really, really hard for all of my clients, not just those that look like me, and that is what it looks like to serve. Thank you.
What is happening in Donald Trump's administration should scare us all. But I want to make one important point about the type of speech that he is going after. Donald Trump, of course, is going after anyone who will speak out against him. But really, Donald Trump wants to go after speech that even some Democrats may view as unpopular. The opinions and positions that maybe some in our party disagree with. And if you do, that's understandable. But it is not understandable to then throw those people under the bus, students, standing up for human rights, advocating for people oppressed across the world because you disagree with what they're saying. They too have freedom of speech. And if we allow them to be attacked, to be detained, to be disappeared or deported by the Trump administration, then where does that leave you? First, they come for people that you disagree with, then they come for you. We have to stand up for free speech, especially when it is speech that we disagree with, and we are certainly going to be doing so on this show in calling out the Trump administration's attack on the First Amendment. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.